Hey everybody, it's Mike Sherwood and welcome to my YouTube channel, Don't Waste Your Life, where we remind you to be present, to be happy, and to be thankful. If you're new to the channel, I ask you to subscribe below. And if you're returning, thanks for coming back. So this week we're going to talk about the top mistakes that I see people make in real estate. This could be beginners, this could be seasoned investors. This is just my take on what I've seen and honestly, even what myself I've made mistakes on. With these tips, they will not be in any particular order. They will just be in a list of things. And in fact, I may actually split this up into two videos because I actually have a lot of things I've seen that I'd like to share with the audience. And hopefully that'll help you as you make your journey in real estate happen. So the first thing that I would say is overpaying for a property or real estate. This can very often happen because you fall in love with the property. Many times, like a regular house you may be buying for you to live in. You really love it, you enjoy it, you want it, and you're willing to pay a little bit more than what other people would be willing to pay. That can be a mistake, especially in investments, because ultimately you're buying it to make money. And if you overpay for it, you're wrapping up more money into that particular asset than what you need to do. So it's important to be rational when you invest. And ultimately, I always say, you truly make your money on when you buy the property, not when you sell it. If you buy it for a price that makes sense to you and it fits your investment options, that is the ultimate thing. Number two is not having multiple exit strategies. When you buy a piece of real estate, you really need to have multiple ways that you can get out of it and be able to make money. What I mean by that is if you buy a buy and hold property and you decide that you no longer want it, or you want to be able to find a way to maximize value out of it, you need to have multiple ways. One way could be that you could just straight up sell the property. Another way you could do is doing a lease or rent to own situation. So having multiple strategies that work for you is very important, because then that, depending on how the market changes, you'll be able to take advantage of different strategies at different times. So for example, one strategy I'm looking into is we own quite a few properties. If we can sell them all together as a package deal, potentially you could get a better valuation out of them than if we sold off the individual parts, because of how we built and constructed the portfolio. So again, having multiple exit strategies is super important in investments. Another area I see a lot of investors, and including experienced investors, make a mistake with is not having enough money put in a reserve fund in case things go sideways. When you get that first $6,000 or $7,000 bill, and you have to pay that and you don't have the money, or you're counting on the money that you bring in each month to cover the mortgage and the tenant decides not to pay, you're kind of stuck. So err on the side of caution. Always put extra funds to the side just in case something happens. Tenants don't pay, issue with your property. It's very important to put that funds aside, plan for contingencies, plans for issues, and you'll be a whole lot safer in the end. Another mistake I see more particularly on the beginning investors, but it can be on the experienced investor sides, is not taking action. So ultimately, when you're getting into the investing world, sometimes you just need to move. You just need to go and try the strategy, see if it works. If it doesn't work, you move on and you try something else. It's super important just to move forward and try something and learn from it, iterate from it, and learn from it. So with that, one of the things I would always encourage people to do is take some action. Now, don't be silly about it and go overboard, but after you evaluate some of your options with your board of advisors, you got to do something. You got to move forward, because I see too many people that want to get investments, but they just aren't willing to pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. Another mistake that I see a lot of investors, and particularly experienced investors actually, is not putting proper protections in place. So as you spent all this time, effort, and money to buy these assets to build a return over time as a portfolio, it's very important to get proper insurance, proper tax advice, proper legal advice. So I recommend that you hire a good attorney, hire a good tax professional, and also take into consideration that even with all these insurances, with all the tax, with all the legal help that you have, it still may not be everything that you need in order to be successful. So it's just something that you can use to mitigate the amount of loss that could happen if an unforeseen circumstance happens. For example, Charles and I had a couple of fires in a couple of our places. And if we didn't have good insurance, we would have been out, $60,000, $70,000 worth of money to repair those places. That's what I'm saying. Having good amounts of insurance, having good amounts of different ways to protect your property is very important, because one mistake, one miss of those could unwind it all. Another mistake that I see is that people are comparing themselves to others. You need to understand that everybody's journey is different and that people start at different times. And sometimes the success story that happened years ago may not be able to be replicated in today because the market is completely different than what it was then. So, for example, with me, the market in 2006, 2007 is quite a bit different than what it is now. The strategies that I employed may not work as successful as they would today. So it's just something to take into consideration when you're doing that. Not only that, when you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're often comparing your daily grind to their highlight reel. Many people are only showing you the pretty things. Nobody likes to talk about the nights and weekends of working, the time away from the kids and family, or missing spouses' birthdays. There's a lot that goes into being successful in real estate. And I don't think anybody is exempt from it at all. This one actually particularly hits close to home, which is not being patient and being overly aggressive. I tend to be pretty conservative. And it's probably changed more now that I have a family compared to when I first started out. Because of my humble upbringing, I tend not to, I don't want to say I'm not greedy, but when I believe I have enough, I have enough. When we've continued to grow our portfolio over time, we expanded it very quickly and maybe even a little aggressively by my standards. But also having a partner that was more risky actually helped me, because in some cases it pushed me to move forward. And by us moving forward, we gained a lot of advantages that we would not be able to take advantage of in today's market, just because those opportunities do not exist like they did before. So as I reflect back on it, I always tell Charlie, maybe we should have bought more, done something different than what we did at that time. There are even a couple of places, Ironton, if I remember right, that was one of the properties that got away because we just thought we could bid low and be able to get it, and we actually lost that one. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes being, not being overly aggressive or being patient is important. One other thing I would say with that is when you make some really good buys, sometimes it's about making hay when the sun is shining. And then sometimes you got to let your strategy go to sleep and you just stop for a while, because by you continue to buy and do things that are dilutive to your returns are actually negating all the hard work you did in the past. And I'll talk about that more in an example a little bit later. So the final item I want to talk about in this list is not trusting your gut. And this goes near and dear to what I was saying earlier about being a little overly aggressive and going outside your means. So Charles and I actually did a flip way back when, and it turned out pretty well. We had some success with it, and we thought we could do something similar like that with another property, and then turn it into a rental. But we didn't truly have the ends in mind, what we were ultimately going to do with that property, which was one of the mistakes that are earlier on this list. The other thing is I felt that it was a little outside, and my gut was telling me that, but I thought maybe, hey, this will be okay. And so I can tell you right now, it was not okay. So we ended up buying the property. I want to say we bought it for like $1,000. We put about $30,000 to $40,000, maybe now about $50,000 into it. Then we had ongoing stuff like, taxes and utilities as well. So we put quite a bit of money into this, and we ended up only selling the house for $30K because we couldn't finish it, because there was all these permits and different things that we're going to have to pull in order to finish it. And it just became a money pit. My gut was telling me that we shouldn't have done that particular place, but I felt like that it would be an awesome opportunity if we were able to make it work. And it's interesting because the people now that own the place are doing nothing with it also. So I think they probably ran into the same issue that we did. So ultimately, trusting your gut is super important. So those are some of my top tips on mistakes that I see people make in real estate. And I'm hoping that by you hearing a little bit about mistakes I made, what I've seen other people make, and just the different ideas are hopefully helpful to you as you get started in real estate or as you continue to want to expand in real estate. And if you have questions, you want to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.